It is possible to be pregnant and also not see a baby on your first ultrasound. In this video, I'm going to be talking about natural miscarriage, specifically blighted ovum, my story, and what to expect during and the next steps you should be taking afterwards. So this is going to be my personal experience. So far, I've had 2 miscarriages, one being the blighted ovum and the other one being a chemical pregnancy. I'll make sure to make a video on chemical pregnancy in a different video, but in this one I'm going to be specifically talking about a blighted ovum. Blighted ovum basically is when there is a sac but there's nothing that developed inside, so there actually isn't any type of embryo or anything like that. It's just a clear sac, just meaning that the chromosomes that mix together weren't the correct number, and your body basically knows that this isn't a viable pregnancy and will let go of the tissue. So to start this, I'll start off with my first ultrasound, which was around 11 weeks. I went in after having a positive pregnancy blood test and one at home, as well as checking my HCG levels in the blood to see that it's elevating. So around this time, I was experiencing slight pregnancy symptoms, such as like a little bit of heartburn. I think my mood was a little down as well, and I was feeling really bloated. However, I noticed toward the 11th week mark, my symptoms started to go down a bit. Instead of it increasing and ramping up, such as morning sickness and vomiting, it actually was the reverse. It started decreasing. So around the 11th week mark is when you should be able to see a baby in the ultrasound, because about this point you're 2 months out. So when I went in, and all I could see on the ultrasound was a big circle and there was nothing in it, I just knew that there was nothing there based off of my symptoms and just actually seeing it on the ultrasound. There was no doctor there, it was only the ultrasound tech. So he was only able to say like, oh, you know, it could be early or things like that, and that if you do experience bleeding or cramping, that go to the emergency room right away. He was giving a very general type of response to what I saw, and I knew right away, like, he as a technician can't diagnose me based off of the ultrasound. So I took that with a grain of salt of what he said, but I did take heed in what he said was, if you've experienced pain and bleeding, then go to the ER. Just maybe 2 days after, I started experiencing a lot of cramping, and it started off as period cramps, but then it slowly got worse and worse as the pain increased and I could not find a position to get comfortable. And at this point, I was like, I have to go to the ER. So I went into the ER and experiencing a lot of pain. A lot of women may not even feel pain, but for me and my relatives, we've had miscarriages that accompany the symptom of pain, and it felt like something was being ripped from my uterus. And I'm trying to be as descriptive as possible just so that you know what to expect, or you might expect these things. Now that I'm in the ER and waiting to get seen, I felt this huge drop, like something had dropped inside of my body, and I knew right there that must be a miscarriage. And my mother was with me and she also was like, this must be a miscarriage. So I proceeded to the restroom because I just had that feeling of, like, you know, releasing, and that's when I heard a big plop. And because I was in so much pain, I was crying, everything was hurting. It was a very emotionally charged experience. It was like I was crying and also relieved that the pain is stopping. So I flushed the toilet immediately. I didn't even look, just because I wanted the pain to be over. And yeah, I was in too much pain to emotionally be like concerned about what had dropped. Knowing that the ultrasound didn't even show anything inside, I just flushed the toilet. Then the doctor came and checked me and said, this most likely is a miscarriage. We're gonna do the internal ultrasound, and just to check that everything has cleared correctly and that there's no other tissue remaining. So they did that and I was good to go. I didn't have to do a DNC, and I passed the tissues naturally, and when I got home I passed more tissue. The tissue is just like a thick membrane kind of texture. So that was my experience with the blighted ovum. Afterward, the doctor did say that I can continue to now try again for another pregnancy, and that's all they said. However, this is from my experience. After my miscarriage, I experienced irregular periods, and that was throwing me off because I did not know that you could get irregular periods from a miscarriage. So that's something to keep in mind, as well as going home and taking another pregnancy test and making sure that it's negative, to make sure that your hormones are balancing out and that there's no other remainder of anything related to the miscarriage. Because if you do get later on in the month, you get a positive, you might think it is a positive, but it could be due to the hormones not evening out correctly based off of your last miscarriage. So these are the steps that I took. Along with this, there is an emotional factor to this. I felt really sad, and I know this is going to be a hard time. You might have built up an expectation of this pregnancy and looking forward to the things to come. The only thing that got me through it was talking to other family members that had a miscarriage and letting them share their experiences and what happened to me. And it's more common than I thought. I thought most of my relatives were like fertile creatures and they never had a miscarriage, but it's actually very common, and that gave me a bit of assurance that this is something natural that happens to women's bodies. And the other aspect that helped me was praying to Allah and asking for a righteous child, and basically to give me ease through this process so that I don't lose hope and have a positive outlook going forward. And that's basically it. Those are everything I've mentioned: what to expect, what is a blighted ovum, and the next steps to go. I wish you all the best in your positive pregnancy journey, and I'm there with you. Thank you so much. If you have any questions regarding this, leave it in the comments below. I read and answer all of my comments. I hope to see you guys on my next one. Bye.